What's good? It's your boy Fanon. Okay, man, I'm going to talk a little bit about Showtime boxing, HBO boxing, the PBC, Fox Sports 1, and what's going on as far as the new deal that Al Heyman and the PBC struck with Showtime. And I'm telling you, man, I think that 2019 is going to be a great year in boxing, and hopefully it can rival the great year that we had in 2017 and far surpass what I believe has been a mediocre 2018. When 2018 began, I was like really hopeful that we'd be able to see a lot of good fights, but it is now August. Excuse me, it is now September of 2018. And to tell you the truth, we've only had a handful of fights that have happened this year, marquee fights that I was anticipating and happy. Now, there's been a lot of fights that I've seen where they turned out to be good fights that I watched that are like lower level fights, but I think it's safe to say that it's nowhere near where it was in 2000 in the great year that we had in boxing in 2017. But with Showtime signing a new deal with the PBC, it seems like we might be heading that way. And so there was an article that came out by Mike Coppinger, who for the ringtv.com. So shout out to them for this article. There's a lot of really good information in it. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, go check it out. I'm going to talk about that. And basically, one thing that came out that I thought was really good and something I was happy to see is that Showtime is now roughly in their budget in boxing, according to Mike Coppinger of Ring TV, is roughly twice the size of HBO. And they've continued to grow their budget. They're promising 30 live telecasts, and also to partner along with the other new partner that PBC partnered with, which is Fox Sports 1. Now, Fox Sports 1 also has now, according to this report, agreed to pay licensing fees to the PBC for the fights that they have. So that should also increase the amount of money that they're able to pay fighters, and also increase the number of dates that you have for fighters as well. So let me go through some of the things that he said. This being Steven Espinoza, who is the head of Showtime Boxing. I'm sure his title is something else. I think it's like Showtime Events. What is his title? I'm going to give the guys respect. God, I don't have it right here. You got to forgive me. Everybody, you guys know who Steven Espinoza is. He runs Showtime. He runs Showtime Sports, and he's responsible for the boxing, and he's done an absolutely great job. He used to be the lawyer for Golden Boy, and he switched over to Showtime. I think he switched over to Showtime right around the time that the PBC really kicked off. But this is what he says. He says, Showtime will definitely be committing more resources, both financially and personally and technically, than at any point in the recent past. We have seen the developments of stars very quickly. Viewership is growing. Subscriptions are growing. Free trials are growing. Direct, tangible indicators of success. That's a better advocate for the continued expansion of boxing programming than anything I or anyone here could possibly offer. The proof is in the pudding. Definitely sounding like your typical businessman. We want to know what those metrics are. How are the metrics? Is boxing drawing people to Showtime? Offering the free subscriptions. Why would that be important? Because look, if we offer a free subscription and those go up, that means that they're looking at the boxing program and they're saying, look, yeah, I like this boxing program. I'm willing to sign up for this free trial, give you a chance, and provided the rest of your programming is up to snuff for me, I might be willing to continue to sign and, get a subscription to Showtime Sports. Now, I'm sure that they're also going to look at things like converting subscriptions to free trials to subscriptions and things like that, but that might not fall squarely on the shoulders of the boxing program. But it's very, very clear that they are the number one in the United States. The Showtime Sports is the number one network for boxing. Espinoza continues. He says, we set the bar pretty high with the last upfront, which was the introduction of fighters, the fights that were going to take place in 2018 that happened at the beginning of the year. He said, we had a lot of fighters there. We had a great turnout, which is saying a lot when it's the first year of everything. Everybody he wanted was there. They were dressed and all on time. Oh, man, that's funny. One of the side effects of developing guys. Now, they also talk about after overtaking HBO as the number one network in boxing, now they got to stay on top. And he talks about that, and he talks about the budget. He says one of the side effects of developing guys and the emergence of guys like, for example, an Errol Spence or a Jared Hurd, who have emerged over the year really at the top tier as their stardom grows, is their pay grows as well. If the boxing budget doesn't grow as well, then as these guys advance, you can afford fewer and fewer fights as they become stars. The goal is not just treading water, but continuing to grow with the fighters you're building. As much as we would like to, now this is talking, he moves on to talk about the PBC's partnership with Showtime, but also I think he's alluding to the Fox Sports 1 and programming, and also probably the programming with Showbox as well, which is under his leadership, obviously. As much as we would like to, we know that there's a limit to what we can do here. There's a limit at every network, at every platform. It does take a collections of networks and platforms for the sport to be healthy. Showbox is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of these up-and-coming prospects. That's one area we see a lot of opportunity, identifying and featuring these promising young prospects early on. It's not going to be exclusively where we expand, but one area of opportunity, more big fights, more small fights, more mid-level fights in 2019. Hey, and I have to, as far as Steven Espinoza goes, I believe when he says something, I tend to believe it, man, because these guys at Showtime have really improved the quality of boxing in the United States. I know, man, there's a lot of, like, when you talk about boxing, you have a boxing channel, especially with the stuff that have gone on in 2018. Man, it's just been a lot of, there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of things, and I know, because I can hear it coming out of my own mouth, that there's a lot of things that didn't happen, right? So and when things don't happen, you complain about it. I complain about it. 2018 could have been a great year in boxing. It could have been a great year in boxing. If Keith Thurman had not gone on the lam, you could have had Keith Thurman, Errol Spence. You could have had Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. You have all kind of great fights that could be made. And they just weren't made. But what Showtime has done is they have put on great fights. Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz, to me, was one of the best fights of the year. Exciting from the start to the finish. You had a really great fight in Jared Hurd versus Islandi Lara, which was a very, very competitive fight. It had ebbs and it had flows. It was just, I saw boxing getting, I saw more of that out of Showtime than I definitely did out of HBO. HBO was withered away to nothing. I can't speak so much about Sky because Sky, I do think, and I kind of blasted it, Eddie Hearn, about this card and it being pay-per-view. But as far as just watching the fight, I thought that was a good heavyweight card with Dillian White and Joseph Parker and Derek Chisora versus Carlos Takam. I thought that was a good card. I enjoyed that, man. That was a good, exciting card from Sky Sports and Matchroom. So, kudos to Matchroom on that card. Got to put a little tack in it. I don't think I would have liked to pay pay-per-view, but since I'm in the U.S., I didn't have to, and I enjoyed every minute of that. It's just that it's just not the fights that could be made. And yes, that's on the boxers. especially when it's with the PBC. If the fights aren't happening on Showtime, I tend to believe that that is the responsibility and that the onus falls on the fighters to make those fights, because most of those guys don't have promoters, right? Most of them don't have promoters. So if Jared Hurd wanted to fight Jamal Charlo or Jermell Charlo, that fight could happen because they're both independent. So that they, from what I understand, I don't think Jared Hurd he's definitely not with a powerful promoter, but I think he's got enough leverage in his career to do the things that he wants to do. That fight could happen. But, Jared Hurd got injured. Man, shout out to my man that said this to me. I won't divulge, but you know who you are. Hey, man, if Danny Garcia, but we'll see. Look, man, the proof is going to be in the